So I'll give you a brief intro about myself. So I am Neil, and I've been a GrowthX member since 3 years now, and uh, uh, I'll give you a little background about myself, how and why I'm doing this. So I have been mostly in technical product management, leading product or business monetization side of things. I am a computer science engineer, but I never formally went into development or practiced writing code, etc. Right. So then at my last job, which was at Dukan, my Dukan, so I was leading product there. Uh, that is the time we started using LLMs fundamentally within the business. So it was, I guess, 2022 when we were using the GPT-3 text complete API. So it was a very fundamental API where you could complete some given string of text. So we were using it for a small business function to generate descriptions of products, etc. Right, and then came in GPT 3.5, which fundamentally made a very large shift because it became very efficient and useful for businesses to build products around. What fundamental shift was there? That they changed uh, the format, or say a logical way in which the API could be used. So the old APIs were basically you'll give a string of text and they'll complete it. And then in the newer models, they trained the models in such a way. Additionally, they made the APIs and parameters in such a way that you could convert it into a chat. It's still text, fundamentally logically it's still prediction and completion of text, but the format of using it changed, right? So you could ask questions, it would answer questions, right? And that's when a lot of people kind of started, even before there were agents or agentic systems. There was this repo called AutoGPT. As in, I'm not sure how many people are aware about this. So AutoGPT, it was launched in March 2023. It's just soon after the launch of GPT 3.5, right? So that fundamental repo is something that has changed a lot of things, has changed so many things that we use today. So there were a bunch of engineers who open source this repo with a fundamental plan that they will build autonomous AI agents and kind of try to achieve AGI themselves, right? And this is that time when there was no multiple parameters, there was no image models, right? There was no tool calling, there was no voice models into GPT 3.5. Like not it was not multimodal, and even if there were, they were very nuanced and very simple. So what these people started doing is that they started building their own frameworks into how can they stimulate an agent into multiple steps and processes of conversation. They'll build their own to-do list, which today, if you see in many models, there would be a thinking tag that the model is thinking that I have to do this, I have to do that. Why do I have to do this? Which makes the future prediction of text or output or the next message better, right? And then with this, uh, they started prompting the models to respond in a particular format. Since these were very hardcore developers, so they figured out that okay, anyway, obviously all API responses are in a JSON format, but within that JSON format, they created prompts that okay, you respond in this particular JSON, and they wrote around 120 parsers. So they by default, as in without any GPT App Store or plugins existing, these people built plugins with Notion, to do apps, etc. And that's when OpenAI even started funding this project, and they they by default they by default realized that okay, when all the developers are using in this way, they modified the APIs to kind of become more developer friendly, and that is something we learned today in depth as well. Uh, and this time also I was deep into all this stuff. Then for business at a business level for Dukan, we started building. I started building, experimenting internally to kind of solve for support. And this is again mid of 2023. Using this AutoGPT repo, we kind of built a system which could talk to Freshdesk and also read documents from embeddings. At the time, and that is the time when RAG was fairly new, but talking to external systems with authentication, etc., was not very accurate or perfect because there was no fundamental tool call or by default very high accuracy models. And whatever I'm saying, you will understand in a little while, as in you'll understand in more depth. But yeah, so we experimented for 2-3 months, and we were able to figure out and build an internal system which would help manage 6 to 7 thousand tickets in the early days, B2B tickets. It was able to read Freshdesk data, uh, you know uh, update ticket statuses, chat with people, modify ticket statuses. Whatever ticket was not solvable, it was able to mark and escalate it to the teams, or people responsible, that this ticket needs to go to the tech team, this ticket needs to go to XYZ, maybe ops team, sales team, right? So that became very efficient, and within 6 months, a lot of things are happening, because in the last over 1.5 2 years, it has been so fast that almost every other hour you will see some new framework or some new tool being launched, right? So then came in tool calling, and it became more efficient. So we decided as a company that okay, we can build this as a separate product, and that is the time we built, or I participated fundamentally myself in terms of development, except product. Obviously, I was part of building the product, but fundamentally started uh, building a SaaS platform, which was Bot9, which once launched kind of was fairly in global news, on a lot of shows, BBC, etc. It got really famous and it was going really well, and I guess it's still working. There are a lot of enterprise clients on Bot9. Similarly, then we were experimenting within Dukaan to kind of, since Dukaan is a B2B platform for e-commerce stores, we were experimenting how to help people build themes for their category pages or landing pages, product pages. So that turned out, and we built it into rollout.site today, which is again a very good landing page builder, and it's a decent site SaaS with a good amount of revenue, I would say. And while doing all this, obviously I was learning my stuff parallelly, and 2024 May, yeah, that's correct, botnet.ai. 2024 May is the time I left Dukan to kind of figure out my own journey, because this made me very curious that these models are evolving. There are so many tools and so many things that are coming in. It is fairly actually possible to either build your own SaaS or a micro SaaS. I will not say SaaS, at least a micro SaaS, because since I'm not a professional developer, I know my limitations, right? And everyone kind of should. I know my limitations where I can get stuck. If I get stuck, I would actually need maybe help from someone. But then again, it's a very good problem to have, right? I would actually get stuck or have any problem when there are users or the platform is scaling. Till that time, it's never a problem, right? So there was no fear about that. So I left Dukan, kind of started building my own products, and I was parallelly freelancing, obviously, to sustain, since I'm bootstrapping my businesses, which are live. I show you around them as well. It is one of the example in today's demo. Uh, yeah, so I started freelancing, and while freelancing again, I worked with multiple companies. A couple of fairly large companies, few average size companies of crypto exchanges, with $1 billion valuation, where we solved fundamental AI problems from scale, for volumes of 30,000 people using it every day, to a very efficient different solution for internal tools, say tools for product managers, tool for API traders where they could trade, do algorithmic trading, etc. So we'll go through those examples. So that's a bit of a background about me. Now coming to this session, what you can expect today to learn is, I am assuming by default that since there are a lot of people from different backgrounds, I'll take it from very layman's terms and from a very fundamental level of thinking. And I'll assume no one knows anything here, even me. So we don't know anything here, and we will learn from the very basics, why we are doing this, why we using this API, etc. Right? So let's kind of get started practically. If anyone has any questions before we get started, they can kind of raise it in the QA. Then in a couple of minutes we'll start. Additionally, I'll give you a fair bit of clarity, right? In terms of what is the effort required to do these things, and it will be very real and very honest. What I feel is the minimum amount of effort or learning curve required for you to become efficient with using AI, LLM. tools. I'm not going towards deep tech of building models, etc. Because that is something even I would require, even 5 years of further learning experience to do, and then to maybe I'll come out very average. And there's no point doing that because I can't obviously build better models than DeepSeek, OpenAI, Cloud, etc. So why go in that direction? But if I can use their products or open source products and kind of build something better for myself, for businesses, and solve real problems, that's a great thing to have. Right. So as in like a lot of developers will not have any problem with this, but for everyone else, right? So we will go to no code tools, but we will start from scratch, uh, in within an ID. And why I am saying this, because now it has gotten so easy and so fast that once you spend 3 days, putting your head around it, uh, uh, fighting with the code, fighting with the ID, asking Cloud Code any questions, and you run one script and one thing gets right, and you build one website, then you'll realize the actual power of it, how accurate these things are. And the easiest thing here is that in terms of old school SaaS systems, anyone and everyone could get overwhelmed. Say, for example, I'll take an example of Stripe or say Shopify. Now Stripe would have around 25 to 50 APIs, right, for every different function, every little service. Coming to Shopify again, if you go to Shopify's documentation, you will see there are around 150 APIs. You have different type of APIs. There's GraphQL. Uh, you can see the APIs in multiple languages, etc., etc. And it is overwhelming, obviously, for non-developers by default. But coming to LLMs, there is literally one API, and that's the beauty of it, right? That if you go to Cloud or if you go to OpenAI, both of them fundamentally has only one API. That is your chat, or you can say message, right? And that one API is capable of doing almost anything that you can imagine. And once you start using that one API in an ID, once you get used to an ID, it becomes so good that it snowballs into other things, because once you learn that one API, you are familiar how APIs work, how authentication works, right? Then you're familiar with how to read a JSON, how to kind of debug some problems that you're having, what are data types, why are they important, very fundamental things. And this by default enables you to kind of build so many other things, because all other APIs work in the same manner. There is no difference. So here the learning gap or the overwhelming thing is not there. What I'm asking you is that all you have to do is spend time, a little bit of time, and learn how to use this one API. And once you are able to learn how to use this one API, you will automatically never kind of go back. And that's what I have felt, and that's what a lot of my other friends who are in the same boat or doing this or regularly use these products like Cloud Code every day kind of feel, right? And I can guarantee you, say, if by the end of the session, right, if you don't find that okay, if you're not convinced that we should be using by default IDs, because it is also fundamentally like a no code tool itself. You don't have to write code at all. And I'll show you. Like if you see this folder, so this event was planned, suddenly 2 days ago from a little Slack message for 10-15 people, and snowballed into a lot of people. So I had to kind of work around and kind of build structures and courses that I can teach and showcase to people on live demos. And it took me not more than 4 hours to kind of build this. And you will see, and I fundamentally haven't written any kind of code. Mostly I've written prompts, and mostly I have kind of guided a little bit around logic. Because when it comes to coding with AI, if the code is publicly available and it is very standard and it is very probabilistic, say you want to build a portfolio or a SaaS platform, inventory management platform, or an e-commerce store, there are hundreds of them available. But if you want to build AI agents or AI tools, what the problem is that there is not enough code available for the frontier models to train on. And once they are not trained on these logics, how to write an agent, how to do sequential agent tool calling, maybe how to do parallel tool calling, how to build a multimodal agent, they get confused. They'll put in old parameters. They'll put in old APIs. They'll destroy all the JSON formats or data structures, then it fundamentally will not work. And that again becomes the problem with no code platforms also, because in the end, they're also using the same APIs. And once you see, okay, if they're using the same APIs and you get this result, so it becomes really hard to kind of control the accuracy and efficiency of the result you're getting, right? So yeah, so we will learn one API, and we will learn it within. So what I'm using right now is VS Code. Within VS Code, I will be using Cloud Code if needed. I don't think we will need Cloud Code for today's session. Uh, if we get enough time, we will debug and build something and go there. But yeah, so we will be using this, and you at yourself don't need anything. If you want to use Codex with VS Code, Codex with Cursor, it's totally up to you, right? And after learning this, what benefits different kind of people who are attending this today will get. Say if you are a bootstrap or a bootstrap builder or a founder, you would be, if you're building your own AI products, you would be able to contribute more. If you're solo or if you have a team, you would have more clarity on what is actually happening, what are the limitations. Fundamentally, if someone is talking to you, if what they're saying is even possible, is that even, if you even need to do that, right? uh, if you're hiring people, you will be able to hire more better people. I think by default you'll be able to hire better people because you have a fundamental understanding of doing this. If you are a product or a marketing or a business leader, you would be able to make automations and tasks that you can do yourself, and fundamentally make more informed business or product decisions. And by default, for everyone, you will be able to kind of once you uh, code or build products from an IDE, you would be able to switch to a no-code tool or anything that you want to. And by default, the learning curve is kind of same. So, for example, I'll just show you. Say if you use Anytime, right? And so I started as an I've been a heavy Zapier user. I have not used Anytime a lot, but I started using Anytime yesterday. And once you go into the platform, say I still fundamentally understand what the platform is about. I can spend say 6-7 hours and kind of figure out how to build things further. But if you look at this platform, you will by default here also get overwhelmed. So now this is something I was trying to build 3-4 hours ago. That okay, I wanted to build a simple chatbot which could talk to my Shopify store, authenticate me, get some order data, switch products, etc., etc. So to start with, it looks very simple. That okay, I have to just one simple, I have to send one simple message. This is the initial message from a user, etc. But then once you start playing around with it, you will see that there are so many things that you can do. I can by default have different API model providers connected. I can have multiple within the API providers, multiple models to choose from. Then there are so many settings that what is a user message, assistant message, and you can create tools. You have other options. You have data cleaning stuff. Then if you just click on some other side of it, you will see hundred other functionalities. If I want to add a new tool, I will see MCP servers. I will see webhooks. I would see data transformations. I would see regex functions, etc. So for a layman or for someone who is not regularly doing this, the learning curve to do this is going to be the same even as of today. As in, I would not say 6 months ago or 1 year ago, at least 1 year ago, the learning curve would not be same. But as of today, the learning curve is, I would say, even less, fundamentally less, because all you have to do is start with learning one API. Because once you learn that one API, then all you have to do is think and type. That is all that is required, right? So now, I have given one example of Anytime. So let's go ahead and kind of see and actually use this one API I'm talking about, right? So again, this code base that everyone is seeing here would be available for everyone to use. And just in case if anyone is thinking, okay, I'm a newbie or I am a developer already or I'm used to this, I will share these details, and this is what I practically think, and this is what I've practically seen from a decent set and group of people, approximately 15 to 18 people who were in different stages of their life, not being a developer, being a developer, how much time it takes to master everything. And what this means is, as in you will see all the details, what is your current skill and what is your API, what profession, what level you want to be. Say if you want to build your own micro SaaS and you don't know anything, you are a beginner, and if you want to actually launch your SaaS, to and go to market, you can actually do it, but it will take you at least 100 days. Given 100 days being that you are spending 1 to 2 hours learning, you can do it way faster. If you're spending 6 hours a day learning, that can come down to say 30-35 days. But you will be capable enough to kind of launch. And if you know a lot of stuff already, then it becomes easier and it becomes faster. But gaining a basic level of proficiency in using AI tools or making workflows or agents, etc. I can't even define a term. Is it an agent? Is it a tool? There is so much debate here. What is an agent? What is a tool? What is a chat? What is a sequential chat? Every day, some new terms coming in. So I'll not go into the jargon and the terms. I will just discuss a basic fundamental level. You can call it and understand whatever you want to understand, but as in I'll define further what I think an agent should be or what a tool should be. But yeah, so you'll get a basic idea. If you're ready to spend this time, which you anyway have to spend, you just saw anytime if you go to Relay or Zapier, it will require the same amount of time. You can't run away from that learning curve. So it's better to invest it here, right? So yeah, so let's get started. So is my screen and code visible to everyone clearly?
Yeah, it's
Right.
visible.
So first, uh, by default, as I said, I'll assume that no one anything and no one knows anything here, even including me, and I'll go from a very layman's perspective. Why people get fundamentally scared or overwhelmed from IDs is because it looks like this. It's black in color. There is some gibberish written here and there, but most of it, what you will see is uh, not even something for you to interact with. As of today, for example, this is one API call that would be doing, and this is literally it. This the part I'm highlighting. This is literally it. There is nothing more than this to learn. And below this is just very simple things which I'll run right now. And practically, you'll see a print statement, etc. If in the sidebar you see things, this is a sidebar where you can navigate through folders. So here I have some images. Here I have some my private environment. What that was there. I kind of change that. But yeah, here I have some folders. I'll explain you what these folders are. So this is like a virtual environment, which again you don't have to use. It's just there. Once you install some dependencies, or once you install some libraries that are required to run your code, this folder will be required to keep your system uh, from not getting into conflicts with other libraries or versions of programs, right? And then again, within this, you will see there are multiple folders. So this is a cache folder, again, not very useful. You don't have to think about it. There is only one script that you have to focus on. There's one script you start with, and this repo will be available, and this is also available with Cloud and OpenAI, but I made it kind of more simpler to understand because you will run into errors there. And why you'll run into errors there is also I'll explain. They'll give you this example, but they'll not give you that, okay, you have to install a couple of other things to kind of get your API key, right? So how this code now works is, uh, from a very layman term, what I have to do to kind of run this code, uh, if I get my API key from my Anthropic account, etc. I have to get into my ID, just create one Python pipe. You have to obviously download the ID for things that you can Google and ask ChatGPT are fairly, and then I'll skip on that. But if you want those questions, you can ask them. You just have to download one ID. You have to download Python. You have to go to Anthropic and create an API key. These are the three steps, prerequisite steps to do this. And then once you get into the ID, don't worry about anything in the left folder. By default, once you open it, it'll be empty. Nothing to do there. You create one script, which is your test one or sample one, learning script one, etc. You create one environment file, and if you don't want to create that, that is fine, but I would suggest you start doing that. It's a very good habit. These are API keys which are important, and say you can hard code it within the code. You can use it within the code. I'll show you by an example. For example, now, this is a program that loads from my environment. It'll load an API key, which is my Anthropic API key, and then to Anthropic, to this particular model, it'll send one message that hello cloud. This is fundamentally the first and only API call that you need to learn. And from here, this API call evolves and changes into with multiple parameters. Right now, to run this particular script, you have to kind of install a dependency or a requirement, which is called which are called libraries, as in developers call them libraries or dependencies. And in terms of language, I'm going with Python because it is very beginner friendly, easy to read, And since I'm trying to solve business problems, language or framework does not matter, because it just delays your decision. You just have to take one decision, get started with it. 6 months down the line, you can change your language. You can start with any other language that you prefer. But I would suggest, for beginners, I would suggest Python, because it is easy to treat. It is very straightforward and mathematical, and it is very easy to debug as well. Right. uh, Now, running this script. So first thing I have to do is simply uh, get my API key, open my terminal. So within the ID, you'll see one button to open your terminal. That is the second important thing that you need to learn about this ID. Everything else in this ID is useless for now. For at least 3-6 months, forget about it. There is no use of it. Right? We are focusing on one API and how to kind of run that. Now I come here, I will install certain libraries which is present in the documentation. There will be a simple command that install Anthropic. So that installs the dependency to run Anthropic on your system. It's as simple as that. So because since you see it's only this much code, how is this program or function running? Right. So this large code base is a library of Anthropic which they have built for you to easily kind of, they have built the low level code. Now you can use that library to fundamentally do anything that you want, and you don't have to look into that library. You have to just kind of work with your own code, and that is again this much because of all the because that's how programming languages have evolved. So you don't have to do a lot of code. Then once you install the requirement, and once you install your requirements, all you have to do is either you have your API key in the environment, or you hard code it here if you want to hard code it here. But I would suggest having it in the environment. And then you have to learn a couple of commands which you'll get used to, or get very savvy to within a couple of weeks. If you're not a developer, if you're a developer, then it's fairly simple. So what now I'm doing is I'm kind of I'm typing CD because I'm right now in Learn AI. So Learn AI is the code folder, core folder, and the script that I want to run is called step one, which is in the fundamentals folder. So I can do CD fundamentals, and I am now in this folder. That is my first step to run the script. Right now, I can just do Python 3 minus m. What is my script name, which is step one. Right. Now, if you see what is happening here, this is one single API where I send one message, basically a user message, and the LLM responds. And what are you seeing here? The first thing, so these are just print commands, so you can see how the API response is coming. This is a raw response. That this is the default response with all the data which Anthropic will provide you when they return, basically when they return, an action against the action you are doing. So you are doing something, you are telling something to Anthropic, and then they're returning you some value. Within this value, you'll have a lot of things, but by what you need to use in a day-to-day, development cycle, or building things, it's just this part, like text. What is the text? What Anthropic is saying here is I told them hello Cloud, and it's saying hello, it's nice to meet you. How can I help you today? And this is just one simple message and a response of a message. Now coming down to this print statements, etc. These are simply here so that you can learn, okay, this is the raw response. This is the extracted message. Okay, I wanted to extract hello, how can I help you today? So how do I kind of extract this? So right now, if you see, there's a command print message. Message is the whole object. What Anthropic is giving you. This is the whole response, which is the message object. Now from message, I just want the text part, right? So I just do message dot content, because you see, once you see, as in once you have your once you have this code base or your reading documents, you will be able to closely look at this if it's not visible. But if you see that there is the word message and there is a bracket, fundamentally a bracket, it's a wrapper around this object, and at the first place, as in basically at the first place, content is available. So you just do message dot content, so it will get you this data. Because within content, if you see, there is a text block, and till this point, all the data is uh, uh, basically, in the content block. So you're getting the content block outside by doing this print statement. Now another example of this, see, this is the whole message. Now what we are printing here is server tool use. So this is again some value which right now is not very relevant. In a couple of steps or next steps, it will become very relevant. Now server tool is at message dot, there is another object, or another level, which is right here. basically usage. Yeah. So message, message dot usage, and within the usage object, right? Within the usage object, there are no other objects, and then there is server tool available. So now I can just access that by message dot usage dot server tool, and I can print that value because server tool use is none, and it is printed here. So one thing is that when you run code in your terminal, you can directly print values into the terminal, or fundamentally what you can do is you can print and save those values into files, right? Once we go a few levels higher, you will be able to kind of save them in structured files. Then you would be able to save them into databases. You would on the fly you would be able to kind of modify those values while you're saving into the databases. That is for later. That is nothing that is required. That is not something that you have to learn. So you kind of skip that. So all you have to focus is on how to start using this one API. So this is the very basic level of this one API, right? And once I ran this, it's saved the raw response in my text file as well, which again, uh, once you have the access to the repo, you will be able to see and use personally. So the same thing is saved in the text file. This is just for an example. Okay, how you can print it here, you can save it in a file, and you can kind of see it for yourself and kind of get familiar to it, right? Now, going to a second level of this, right? This again is literally the same API. There is no change in this API. What I'm doing is that now Cloud API allows me to pass the system message, which is basically you will see on Twitter or LinkedIn, oh, ChatGPT prompt got leaked, that prompt got leaked, type prompt, and we'll show you the prompt, how to use this prompt. This is where a system prompt is added. It is not mandatory for you to add a system prompt, but you can add a system prompt which kind of gives a direction or instructions for the model to respond to the first message or to a continuing conversation. But we are just talking about one message here. We're not going to chat or a continuous conversation as of now, because it is you'll get more confused chat because of chat GPT. Fundamentally, I think a lot of other people are kind of get confused. This is fundamentally one API call where I send some data and I get one text response. That is basically a message. Yeah. Yes, Viola?
Neil, is it possible to zoom in a little bit? The font is too small. Thank you.
You're on mute, I think, Neil.
Yeah, sorry. So I have not ever used as in zoomed into an ID. If anyone knows that how to kind of zoom into an ID with a shortcut, that'll be great. But if not possible, I have to kind of Google search it how to zoom into an ID. In the chat, I'm looking command plus. Yeah, thanks. Cool. Is it more? Is it better now?
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll keep it in the side for now. Yeah. So once I run this, I'll show you. Now, if you compare this step 2 and step 1, this is again the same API. Ignore the code below. I'll just enter and kind of hide it and move it out of your screen. This is the same API. If you come here again, this is the same API. What is changing in this API is what are called parameters. So every API will have parameters, right? So you can modify and play around with parameters to kind of do do different things, or tell the API, okay, now take in an image, or take in a system prompt, or you can change the temperature. We'll come to that as well, but let's just look at a system prompt, right? So now I have added a system prompt that you are the founder of Protex. Your name is Udayan, and you greet people by saying "What's up, champ?" That is how you respond. So this is a very simple example of me adding a system message, right? Now what I'll do is, again with the same method, I will just type clear, which clears my terminal so that you can see better. I have to do the same thing again. If there are window users, there are fundamental changes in commands that you can Google about. Say Python 3 becomes Python. A couple of other commands change, but rest is exactly the same, right? So I can just now run Python 3 steps. So this is me running a Python script, right? When I run a Python script, the script executes one time. It is possible that the script might run for a longer time if the task is larger. It is not a website or an app or a server. It is just a simple script which I'm executing right now. So I just click, press enter after typing Python 3 minus m step 2. Now, yeah, let's see how the response is. If you see what changed, because I've sent the same message here to Cloud, I've sent hello. But this time, since I've added a system prompt where I defined that, okay, you are Udayan, founder of GrowthX, and this is how you talk. Greet people by saying, "What's up, champ?" So it said, "What's up, champ? Great to meet you. I'm Udayan. How can I help you today?" And if you see now, since I'm using, I did not tell it that in detail what GrowthX does, or what services are available. Are they are they into the product management or the growth industry or business industry? But since this model is fairly new, which is it has knowledge till up to March 2025, right? So it knows about GrowthX a lot. So it is he's by default telling me, if you just want to chat about GrowthX marketing, building cool stuff, I'm all ears. So that's what changed by adding one parameter and how I can play with it. Now this system prompt becomes important and useful uh, further once we start evolving the use of this API to kind of build more complex solutions and more complex stuff, or whatever I would say, tools, agents, or sequential API calls, or as running a simulation of chats to get your result, etc., etc. That you will understand in a little more time once we move to further steps, right? So now, if you understood this was step 2. If anyone has any fundamental doubt and they want to ask anything, they can ask right away, no problem. Again, in step 2, except the code, there are just print statements. One is a print statement, so I could print the code in the terminal so you can see. And one is a save state statement, which stores, instead of a text file, in this I have saved this data in a JSON file. There is no other different. JSON is a type, file type, like a PPT or a PPTX or a docx. Similarly, text JSON or .txt and .json are different kind of file types. Once you're in your IDE, so the same thing is stored here, and with the raw response, whatever the AI had mentioned. So let me just take a minute and see if there is any Q&A about or any question about this. Yes, so Shraman is asking that, can you run step 2 multiple times so that we can identify how response is changing due to temperature variable? Yes, as in you will have this repo access, you can play around with it, you can change temperature. Since the last 1 year, changing the temperature in short responses or short tasks does not change a lot of things. But if I go to 1.5, 2 years earlier, if I made the temperature 1, and if I add 2, 3 extra symbols, it will start blurting out a random text of strings which are just random variables and question marks and hashtags, etc. But today, with newer models, that problem has kind of gone away. So even up to a high temperature of 1, it's not a fundamental problem. But if the task or the chaining of messages that you're attaching to this starts getting bigger and bigger, that's when it can start hallucinating, because this is what defines temperature, is what defines the probability. Basically, if the say, in a very fundamental language, if say the model feels that the next word or the next sentence or the next token, the probability of it being right is 80% or above, it will put out that token. A very simple fundamental example would be, say, I ask it that, how do I integrate Razorpay into my GrowthX dashboard? Now GrowthX has no integration for Razorpay, right? I'll just and additionally tell it that I have my API key and I'm in the right side of dashboard settings. So now if the temperature is high and you can experiment with it, the model fundamentally, I'm not sure about this latest model because I'm not sure how much knowledge it has about the GrowthX dashboard, but it'll take an assumption because 80% dashboards are in the same layout. It'll tell you that go to the right side panel, click on settings. Under settings, there will be integrations. Under integrations, there will be Razorpay, and paste your API key there. And that has happened with us for Shopify and Dukan multiple times. The support bot will start randomly giving out information on probabilities of the market, that on average this happens. So okay, this should be happening, right? So that's why people came in with RAG thinking stuff, citations, so that the data can get more factual and the model does not blurt out unprobabilistic things or things that are not actually there. So that's what people call hallucinations. That the model will create data just based on probability, the average or median, if you would say, what happens in software or in terms of the data it is trained on. So I'm referring. So yeah, Tushar is asking what temperature are we referring to here. So temperature is a parameter in this API call. So when I send, so this is the API call again. When I send my message to Cloud that I'm creating a client, then I'm sending a message to Cloud. This is the model. So this, if you go to OpenAI, the structure again there will be same. There will be a model name. There will be a system message. There will be temperature. There will be max tokens, and then there will be your user message. It is same with almost every LM provider. Maybe there is a 2% variance in parameters or functionalities, but it remains same with everyone. So that's why I'm again pressing on the fact that all you have to do is learn one API, start evolving with this one API, and it'll roll into multiple other things. So what would be use cases for temperature closer to one? This is one question. Say, as in basically you have to generate a random string, as in a more random paragraph. So you're writing a story, or writing a fictional story, or you're writing a blog, right? So if the temperature is 0.1, so that means that the probability of that should be very high, the next token that the model is predicting. So now it will find, and it will relate to data that is heavily present in its training model, right? So if you move it to one, then even if the probability is not very high, and if the model, because it's a black box, I mean, like there's no fundamental way of actually knowing how the model is turning out these tokens, but these parameters control it a little bit, right? And with temperature one, it'll start creating stories that are mixed of multiple stories, which maybe just have a match of one sentiment. Against, if it is at zero point 0.1 temperature, it'll just create stories or content which matches a lot of sentiment again, throughout with each other. Even if you're trying to create a new story, even if you're trying to create something new, it will sound very similar, or very, as in terms of a thought or a sentiment, very something average, or not average, very highly probabilistic, that you have it's present in the training data or the internet or across the world. It's so these models, and one thing you have to understand is that these models are by default at a fundamental level just at a probability predicting the next token. I'm not saying that these models are bad or they are not smart. I would not use the word smart. At this point, this model is 1000x more knowledgeable than me, but I don't think it is more smarter than me. I think it can solve 10 mathematical problems because it has solved some similar 10 mathematical problems. But if I spend some time, because I've not learned mathematics at a deep level, I will not be able to solve it. But if I spend some 6 months learning it, because they also spent a lot of time training on the data, if I'm given the same training time or compute, I will perform 100x better than this model, because I can think, fundamentally actually think. These models are still predicting, and that's not a bad thing, but that adds a limitation. So you have to be very sure that where to use them, where the probability of things is very high and the accuracy rate is very high. That you will only get, you'll grasp it only with further practice of using these things, right? So yeah, so that was a QA question. Sorry, I didn't announce. So there was a QA question from Viola itself regarding temperature. Yes, Amit is asking which platform website is this. So this is literally my IDE. This is cloud. This is VS Code. This is not a website where it is hosted. This is an IDE. I am working in my IDE. It is not hosted anywhere. It is this IDE is running locally, but obviously this API key, and this API, I am hitting the cloud server, which is obviously in the cloud, in the sense, not cloud, Anthropic. I will say Anthropic. I am hitting the Anthropic server to get a response. That is not hosted on my system. That is with Anthropic in their data centers with their GPUs. That's what an API does. It allows me to talk to a third party. So from my local system, I'm talking to a third party here. Yeah. Yeah. Moving on. So let's go to step 3. Yeah, Anthropic server is being hosted by them. But a fundamental level, I'm as in like uh, I'm as in at a fundamental level at my PC, I'm hosting VS Code, so it is the same thing because this machine is mine. I'm doing the compute, but yeah, cool. We'll skip that. So now, yeah, so now evolving this the same API into another step, right? Yeah. So what we are going to do here is that there is nothing different, but within the system prompt, if you see, I'll just zoom in again. Yeah, within the system prompt, it is the same thing till here that you respond to people as by default that's WhatsApp champ, and then you always respond in HTML formatted data. So this is where things change. So this is what was happening till 2023, and it is still happening with a lot of people. That's why I fundamentally feel that they don't see or find the output in results or quality because they are still prompting the model as in like you are every time you're prompting the model, but there are parameters in which you can prompt the model, and the model has a value for every parameter. That okay, if you're prompting here, I'll listen more. If you're prompting here, I'll listen less. So if now here I'm telling to respond in an HTML formatted data, right? Nothing else has changed in this API. Only in the system prompt, I'm telling it that okay, talk to me, but the data should be HTML formatted. This data can be JSON formatted. This data can be Markdown formatted. This data can be uh, all small case or a combined string without any spaces, whatever kind of formatting that you want to have it, you can try and prompt it, but the accuracy of that response will depend again on the training data available because no one responds with all the words and strings attached to each other without spaces, so it will not fundamentally respond to like that. But HTML, Markdown, or JSON, it will respond because those are default formats with what people use across the globe for development or even blogging, writing content. So it has heavy training data on that. And now, if you see nothing is changed there, I'm gonna run the step 3 again, and we'll see how the response changes. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Now, if you see again the same API response, this is the raw object of this API response. There is a text block, and within that text is the content that I require. This as like so, I'm just printing the content right now. I'm not again. If you see here, the change that I have done is I'm directly printing the content. I'm not printing the raw response. I'm saving it in the data there. So this is the content. Now this is HTML formatted. If you see in this that it has added H2 tags, H1 tag, because it can be useful that say I want to write a blog and I want HTML formatting, right? I'll ask the model to by default give me the content in HTML formatting. I am a blog writer and I use WordPress where there's a rich text editor. And what the problem is that GPT is writing blogs for me, but it is the normal general text formatting. Then I have to manually go and do all the HTML formatting myself, which kind of takes the same amount of time. So instead of that, I could tell the model to give me an HTML formatted content. Similarly, say if I take developers, right? Why developers would prefer a JSON format, as in all API responses are a JSON object, but within that object itself, another JSON object of the content, because then developers can kind of use that JSON object to parse it easily, take those values and fill it into some other data or make some third-party API call, which you will understand again in depth very easily in very layman terms in for the next 2 to 3 steps, right? So again, what we did here is nothing but asked the model to respond in a HTML format, right? Now, what I'm going to tell you is that as of today, as in even since the last 1 year, this is this is not something that you are supposed to do or you should be doing. If you're doing this, you are losing out on a lot of things and a lot of accuracy. Maybe the models are not working very great for you, because what happens in this format is that there is, except the format, there is no limitation. Now it is possible that many times these models, as in the latest models, most times they'll not give you any errors, but sometimes they'll print another string next to it after the HTML format. After this comma, it'll tell me here is your HTML formatted content. That is something that I was not expecting. So say I was building some automation, right? And I know that I send one message, write a blog, and the blog comes out in one HTML format. Now, I integrating and publishing that blog is not dynamic. It is dependent on the developer or me, whoever is writing that integration. Now that needs to be accurate and solid so that I don't get errors. That's why people start getting errors in automation, and things start falling apart, right? So now in this particular format, if I'm prompting the model in the system prompt or the user message directly to format, to respond in a particular format, that is not the best way now, because for this particular use case, Cloud and Anthropic, both of them, sorry, Anthropic and OpenAI, both of them, for this exact use case, have given you one more parameter. Again, what are parameters that we were discussing about? There is a system, a prompt, model, temperature. These are all parameters, right? Now, these LLM providers, almost all of them, have given you a new parameter to solve this particular use case, because this use case unlocks a lot of business automation and a lot of value, and that we will see in the next couple of steps. If anyone has any doubt or any question, uh, please raise them in the QA part, not the comments. So Anshul has a question that when to use prompt in the system attribute and when as a user message. Now, now, so it again depends on what kind of automation or business value you are trying to derive. You are building one singular function or a script. You are building an AI agent, because there are multiple things that you can play around with. Say within a user message, first of all. You can, in the earlier days, people were adding these values in the user prompt, and there was one system prompt, but additionally they will buy, because uh, I'll come to that. This particular example, I'll take it again in the next few steps, then you will understand more clearly. Because the more space I get to prompt the model, the more context I am giving about my prompt, and the better the result becomes. There were limitations that the system message can be of this much length, right? Then with the system message, people would by default create two messages of their own. They'll create one assistant message. There was one system message. They'll create one first user message. Okay, hi, I am doing this. That is by default message. Not an actual user is sending that message. That is again a prompt. Whatever you're sending to this AI by default from your site, unless any actual human or third party system is talking to it, that is your configuration or prompting or whatever you want to call it, trying to change the behavior or get the behavior in a certain way, right? But as of today, if you do this in the system prompt or within the tool itself, there is no fundamental requirement of adding it in the user message, because there were rumors earlier that okay, the value of the what is written in the user message is higher, the value of what is written in the first assistant message is higher, and that is all fundamentally fudge, because I have not practically seen any change. I have seen better accuracy and better value in the products or projects that I have built over the last 2.5, 3 years, because I'm doing nothing special here. I'm literally following what is written in the documentation by Anthropic or Cloud or OpenAI. Fundamentally, if the API provider is telling me to use it in a certain way, why do I have to kind of think about new methods or new ways and experiment on my own? Because they know how to build this. This is their product. Uh, I have to just follow what they are saying in the documentation. Right. So moving ahead, I'll clear this and we'll go to step 4. Now in step 4, again, the API will remain the same. We will just add one new parameter. Oh, sorry, we'll go to step 5. You're already at step 4. Yeah. I'm just checking that we didn't miss anything, right? Oh, sorry. Yeah. I accidentally duplicated step 3 and 4. So they are the same code. I'll delete that. But yeah, this is step 4 now. The same API, but there is another parameter. Now, this is something that used to be called functions. Now they call it tools, right? Now these tools are present here to solve your particular problem, to ensure that every time, 100% of the times, the model responds in the way you want it to respond, and the model follows all data type structures that you want it to follow, because it unlocks a lot of business value, and I'll show you those examples right away, right? So now, if you look at this tool, a tool again at a fundamental level, all these things go in because the models don't get any special JSON, etc., etc. But all these things go in one bunch of text to the model, and model is making predictions. But these LLM providers have fundamentally tuned those models that if you have defined this in tool, then we will ensure that this model will always respond in this format. So you don't have to kind of build your own systems and ways and write in the prompt, please bro. Like for one example, this meme was viral a couple of days ago, as in like a week ago. Agentic AI economy. And this is very funny. This meme looks very funny. It was very funny for 1.5 years ago. But as of today, it is fundamentally wrong. That reasoning elements. And in the prompt, you're writing, please, bro, response and respond in a valid JSON format without errors. Make sure the syntax is super correct, or I lose my job, or my cat will die, etc., etc. Now, you don't have to do it in the prompt because OpenAI, Cloud, Grok, everyone has provided you this parameter called tools. And there can be a bunch of tools. There can be hundred of tools. Cloud accepts up to 100 tools in one API call. You can define so many tools, so many things, but we'll just start with one tool. And again, as I said, this is again a text with another tag to it with a structure in it. There is no difference. This is again a prompt, but a structured prompt. Now, what the prompt is, how I define a tool is that I can name a tool. So all the above messages and steps, we were sending one message and getting one greeting from the Anthropic LLM model, right, or the cloud LLM model. Now the tool I'm calling is Udayan, greet and introduce GrowthX, right? The description gets structured information about a person, because we as in like get as in give it will actually give structured information about a person. That's fine. That's one typo, but it's okay. Yeah, coming to the next part. Now, the tool is telling that your response should be in this format and it should have these values. So this is the JSON object here. This is what you call input schema, right? So you are defining the schema or the structure or the syntax that the LLM should respond you in. Except the syntax, you will define a couple other things, which I'll come to in the next couple of minutes. Yeah. So the first property is called greeting. That okay, Udayan, greet people, and this is here the description. This will be a greeting message from Udayan, and I'll tell you the use cases of this. Right. The second thing I want from you is about GrowthX. I want a brief information about GrowthX from you. Right. It should be a string. If you see these values, this type is called data type. That okay, you should give me this description in a string of text. Right. A string is basically a string of characters. So it basically a sentence, or as for non-developers, it's just a sentence, and you can define how long it can be by just prompting it, and we will try it. Right now about GrowthX, you will give me a brief description about GrowthX. Next is the next part of my object. Next property is what does GrowthX do? Now this time I want the LLM to give me a list instead of one string. I want to give me an array. Array is basically a list. Again, this is a data type. That please give me a list of items that GrowthX does. Right. Then the next property in this is who should join GrowthX. Right. This again give me a list of type of people, category of people who should join GrowthX, which I can define in the prompt. Right. I can write here list of professions who should join GrowthX, list of domain of career who should join GrowthX, or give me a list of actual age brackets of people who should join GrowthX. It can be any list I want in any structure I want, because this is again a prompt, but a prompt in a structured method. Why this helps, we'll come to that again, right? So again, this is a list of people who should join GrowthX, and then I'm telling that in the last, give me one more list why you should join GrowthX. Here, as I was explaining you that this is again a prompt, right? I've just added one more thing here, so you'll understand that list of reasons to join GrowthX. In a way, Yoda would say it, right? So Yoda is a famous character. LLMs are already trained on its memes and languages, how Yoda talks to people. Now, I have again, there is one more parameter, that what is required. So whenever you are using this tool, basically whenever you are responding to my message, when my API call, and there is the tag parameter present, tool use, all these values are required. And this is very important to understand. All these values are required because I'll come to this. all these values, because this makes you this helps you build chains of models which can work in a sequence at a very logical level, so that you can reach very high accuracy. And that is present in the next two examples, right? So greeting is required, about GrowthX is required, what does GrowthX do is required, who should join GrowthX is required, why join GrowthX is not required. Now it is possible that if my temperature is high, the model might skip it because it is not required in this text, right? But say if the temperature is low, the model will by default send that value, because this is nothing. If the model struggles to find that value, it might skip it. But if the model has this value, because the model already knows about GrowthX, they are trained on this data, so the model has no problem answering that question. Let's see, it should work as it worked the last few times. Yeah. So I'll run this again. Now, again, if you're attaching tool, you can still have your system prompt, right? I still have the system prompt. In the system prompt, yeah, in the system prompt, I have emphasized that you should tell them why they should join GrowthX. If I remove this and the required parameter is not there and the temperature is high, then it is possible that the model might skip it, or it is possible that the model might include it. So then it becomes your choice how you are parsing the data, as in how useful that data is to you. Totally depends on your use case, and we'll come to some examples and you will understand why, right? Then again, the same API call. This time, the new parameter that is added is tools, right? So I have written the tool here separately. You can write the tool in a separate JSON file and import the tool here, or you can literally write the tool right here with below the system prompt. You can push it anywhere. This is just right now called as a variable, that this is the list of tools. So if you fundamentally see that this system message as a text, then this tool message, again, because models are reading a string of tokens, they don't care JSON, HTML, etc., etc. They are reading a string of tokens. Once the input goes in, there is nothing special that goes in. But the training of these models, how they are, how they're how these model providers are ensuring that they become useful, are through using these parameters. So now, if I define this in tool, now I will highly likely get a response that the way I want to get the response. So let's try and run this. And if you see in my system message, I'm not told, Udayan, as in my LLM model, which I am calling the founder of GrowthX for now, to talk to me in a certain tone, etc. I have only declared that in the tool, because tool itself is again a prompt, right? So now let's see what it has responded with. So this is the raw API response. Now, when the model is using a tool, right, there will be a particular parameter in the API response, which becomes very useful for developers or integrations. Because since you have defined what should be the response, what should be the structure of the response, you have named the tool yourself, right? And if the response from Anthropic itself is tool use and the tool name is available, so now you already know what data you have to parse and in what format it should be. There is not going to be another sentence on top of it. There is not going to be another sentence on the bottom of it. The data structure will not change. So your accuracy of integrations into third parties or data parsing or analysis increases exponentially, right? That's why this tool is very important. So and that's why I have printed the raw response here, because you see in the response only one thing changes, that you will see that there is a tool use and there is a name of the tool use. That is your signal as a developer or as a builder that, okay, I have this data available from Anthropic. Now I can write a very simple script or whatever function I want to write to parse that data and use that data the way I want to. Now you can use this data for just filling into a CSV file. You can use this data to call another API call, because if you do an API call, and this is again a very practical example, this is an API call, right? These are values of a parameter. Now I could have written a tool that I want to make an API call to Anthropic with a particular system prompt and a model of your choosing, etc., etc. And you define the token length. But I want model, which is necessary, which should be a string. I want tokens, which should be an integer. I want a system prompt, which again should be a string. I want messages, which should be which should be a JSON object where this is how it is defined. Now, when I'm calling OpenAI APIs to stimulate chats, or analysis between models to Anthropic. So I want OpenAI to be able to use Anthropic as an LLM. So now OpenAI will pass me these values because OpenAI cannot directly call this model, right? When if you see ChatGPT or Anthropic, etc., using third-party tools, they don't directly work with them or integrate with them. They tell their developers, I want to do a web search or I want to talk to OpenAI. That's why they're calling the tool. Okay, tool is named call OpenAI or call Anthropic, and this is the data you require, right? So here is the data that you require. Now please talk to OpenAI and tell me what is the response. Now we'll come to those parts also in further steps, but that's those are the use cases of tools, and this is what unlocks most of the business value. As in, chatting or generating text in messages is not very accurate. It gets very bloated. It is very inefficient. You have to write hundreds of parsing methods. The developers have to write, edge cases. Okay, what if you have to write regex? What if there is an extra comma? Or what if there are 3 stars? Or what if there is an emoji? What if there is a new line? /n. So you figure out 10-15 edge cases, and still there will be a couple of things that will break, and which will spoil the whole experience of automating these systems for yourself or for your business use case or etc etc, right? Now coming to the response. I'm just printing the response here, right? So we defined in the model, in the tool, that there should be a greeting, right? And the greeting should be a string. So this is a greeting. I am Udayan. I'm thrilled to connect with you today. It is a string. It is a greeting as we expected, right? Then there should be about GrowthX, exactly where it should be. There is about GrowthX, and again it is a description, a brief description. If I have told it a long description, it'll give me a long description. If I tell him, if I tell it Google SEO optimized description, then it'll give me a 150 character description, which I can use for optimizing SEO, meta titles, meta tags. You can unlock multiple use cases, whatever you can think of, wherever you require data or wherever you want to do tech calls and you want to unlock that, you can think of that as in once you come across business use cases and start using it regularly, right? Then coming to the next part, what does GrowthX do, right? This should have been a list. Now, if you see, it is a list of 5 things. This is, I'll just expand it a little bit so it becomes more perfect to read. Yeah. What does GrowthX do? So this is a list of 5 things. GrowthX delivers cohort-based learning programs, focus on growth, product and business strategy, hands-on, etc., etc. These 5 points. Who should join GrowthX? Again, I told the model that this again should be an array. It should be a list. It is again a list. Now I can define that. Okay, this should be a list of 10, at least 10 things, at least 3 things. That is me prompting the model within my tool, because within my description I can add more values, more definitions, instructions, how to respond in this schema, right? And why you should join GrowthX. This is where we had added that sentence that you should talk like Yuda. So this will prove you that tools are also prompts, but tools are a better way of prompting when you need a definite output in a definite structure. And for integration, etc., you always need them. 100% times you need a definite output and in a definitive structure. If you're still prompting in the system message and you're getting errors, this is the reason you're getting those errors, because you're not using tools. Yeah. So why join GrowthX? Learn from the real world. You will. Theory alone, not enough it is. Network with brilliant minds. Build you shall. Right. So now here Udayan has started talking as Yuda. If you want to run another example, say talk like any other famous celebrity or any other change, if you want me to do right now and run this step again, let me know. Otherwise, we'll skip to the next part, or we'll first, let's see the once again. Yeah. So if you have any doubts, etc., we will kind of take those doubts for 5 minutes at max. And then we'll move to the next part. Then we'll take a 10-15 minute break, because to clear one thing, there might have been a little misunderstanding, because obviously I want to provide a lot of things and knowledge to you guys. It is impossible to kind of skip these things, because I think these are fundamentally important if you want to learn how to build with AI and AI agents. And if you skip beyond this, you will lose out on a lot of value. But if you spend a little time and little effort, it will not take you more than 3 to 4 months to become efficient enough to understand this, use it at least for yourself on a day-to-day basis in your company. And if you're already, well versed with technology, you would be able to build, even production grade apps, etc. And I'll show you real examples after this. So yeah, so if anyone has any new questions. Yeah, Anshul has a question that are tools only for output structure and formatting? Yeah, so that is the primary use case, because that enables you to do further a lot of things. But there is a secondary, more important, or a very important, not more important, a very important use case wherein you want to build agents. That is what I'll call agents. When you are able to simulate a bunch of tool calls, and these bunch of tool calls are not just messages between each other. There is a tool call where, say, a tool call says that I want to read a Notion doc. This is a document name. This is what I want to read, and these are the keywords which I want to read about, and provide me this data. Now that tool will be executed, and there will be a third party API call, and that data will come back to the chain of thoughts, a sequence of messages. Then there can be another tool based on these Notion docs. Now please see what maybe the Notion doc was about, the project plan or bugs or issues, maybe a list of bugs that were there last month. Based on the bugs that were there last month, now please analyze, press this data for the last 30 days or the current 30 days. Are the same bugs still being reported? Right now, to do this task, right, you would have to actually you can read the Notion doc easily, record the data there. But if you're a product manager or a business owner, say you have 100,000 tickets in Freshdesk, you can obviously categorize tickets. But within a ticket, how do you kind of further find data? There is one title of a ticket, category of a ticket, but people talk to you, people write descriptions, people attach images. Now you need to analyze 100,000 of those tickets, and by default you'll have to go to your analytics team, which will spend 2, 3, 4, 5 days writing queries, clustering data, analyzing from more keywords, from few other algorithms, or else you can kind of build a particular agent which will spend maybe $20 in token cost, but will be able to analyze even the images, the sentiment, what the user was actually talking about, even if they were talking about in a particular language, create new parameters, create new filters to cluster them together, and then give you a summary of that data. And that too, even in say 15, 20, or 30 minutes of time, depending upon obviously your ticket volume and other things. So that's another use case of these tools. But that's why I was focusing on that required parameter, because that required parameter will enable you building a chain of these links. And how it will build that chain of these links, for example, uh, the example I gave you, right, Notion and Freshdesk. So the first tool is that get me a list of tickets from Notion, tickets and categories from Notion, and I want to check it against Freshdesk. Now I have my Notion tool, well and good, fine, no problem. But now I have my Freshdesk tool. Now in my Freshdesk tool, I have a parameter which says keywords from Notion. Now the LLM cannot call this tool without calling the Notion tool first, because it can see in the prompt, if it calls a Notion tool, it will get the list of Notion keywords. And I've defined in the system prompt key, your goal is to find me and analyze Freshdesk data. To analyze this Freshdesk data, it needs the Notion tickets, and it is a required parameter for Freshdesk. So it can never call the tool without missing that required parameter, because that is what Anthropic or OpenAI is telling you. That is why it is present here, right? So this ensures that always the model will always search Notion first, and then logically by default it'll call Freshdesk. Now you can build this chain of tools or sequence in a logical way, that you want to build a workflow from find data from LinkedIn, then find data from Twitter, then create a post, and then post it on Slack. Now you can add parameters in such a way that default find, if there is no problem, you can find data parallelly at LinkedIn and Twitter. But if there is a fundamental logic in your workflow, you can define these tools in such a way that by default the model first has to get to LinkedIn to get some data, because that data is required to use the Twitter tool, right? And then to create posts, it requires data from both the Twitter tool and the LinkedIn tool, or even just the Twitter tool. So now the model will logically sequence these things. That it'll call the LinkedIn tool first. You will do the LinkedIn API call. Then you'll call the Twitter tool first. Then you will do the Twitter API call to for whatever data you have to gather. Then maybe you will do a nano banana call to build a post for Slack or some infographic that etc., that this is in our Slack channel. We are creating one post based on trending content, which the whole company should go post on LinkedIn, Twitter. Very very layman example, right? And then with Nano Banana, after that maybe you have a content writing tool, post writing tool. The post writing tool requires these parameters. The post writing tools requires keywords and descriptions from LinkedIn and Twitter. It requires the link to the image that has to be included in the post, and then it requires some other data which might not be linked to other things. But this will ensure that it will always work in a sequence, right? It will logically always work in a sequence, and you can build whatever chain, whatever agent, whatever you can think of. And these models allow you to define 150 tools, and Cloud gives you an accuracy of 94% if you have 150 tools. And 150, I can't even imagine what will I do with 150 tools. But if I take it to a complexity, 10 to 15 tools in a sequence is more than enough to do a valuable business task. And that is now possible with almost the utmost accuracy with these latest models. And I'll come to the next example, so from which we'll get more clarity on this. Yeah, Tushar, etc. We will do deep dives. I have the open source code, etc. But we have another 30 to 45 minutes on today's session. So I want to cover up at least 70% of what I planned to teach in the fundamentals. And by default, as I mentioned, right? So this plan of taking this session, came in suddenly, and I found the first plan was to have 2-3 sessions, and I'm still trying to plan that, but we'll see how the session goes, how the feedback is, and then we'll decide that if we have to have further sessions. Okay. So yeah, Sharman has a question: how do you prevent APIs from answering things that are not relevant to the system prompt? I, as a user, asked Udayan in that case to find me good restaurants in Mangla instead of of anything related to GrowthX. That that basic instructions you can define in the system prompt. You can capture 80 to 90% of these things, and then again, if you have to, as in are you building a chatbot? As in, is your use case building a chatbot? As in, I'm not sure, and as in, I'm pretty aware that for maximum businesses, 80% to 90% of use cases don't lie in chatbots, but other automations. But if you're building a chatbot, you can have a larger system prompt. It's a single sentence. Now these models allow you to have a system prompt of even up to 200, 500, sorry, 50,000 to 200,000 tokens. So you can have a lot of instructions there, but there is no end to it. There are other ways to kind of stop it or not respond to the user. You can just tell it if the user is not. You can tell if the user is not talking about enrolling into GrowthX or not talking about product management, asking doubts about GrowthX. Ignore the user. Tell them that I answer only for GrowthX. So by blanket, you have banned everything else, right? So you have to think how to kind of, if you start writing conditions, it becomes a more bigger problem. But if you want accuracy, you just tell the model if someone is talking anything except about this part, just ignore it. Tell them no, please come back to this topic. We'll not talk about it. And there are multiple other ways on how you configure it, but we are at a very basic level right now. But let's kind of move further, right? Yeah, so let's take a 5-6 minute break that we can gather again. I guess I've talked a lot non-stop for 1.5 hours. A lot of things to absorb. I'll try and answer questions and read questions, but let's take a 5 to 10 minute break, and then let's continue on the second level where we'll actually have data analysis, web search, and chaining of thought of a particular tool, and we'll with an actual business use case from an actual company from Bangalore, and it's a very simple but a very valuable use case. Right. So you can write your FAQs here. Let's resume at 12:40. At 12:45, we'll come back. Hey guys. Yeah. So yeah, we were. I think I'll cover up what we did right now. We just learned a very singular API call and a response for that. Like we added one parameter in the API in a system prompt. Then we went to the next step where in the system prompt, except the parameter, we added a specific instruction. As in, like, we already had an instruction, but this was a formatting instruction. And someone had a question that why would we need HTML formatted question? But I guess I already answered that. If someone is writing blogs, or someone is maybe doing a website builder. So if you're doing a website builder, you need by default HTML. So you can make it as a code file. This is a HTML code file, right? An HTML code file. So that becomes, as in, you can do that in a tool. But people were earlier asking the model in the prompt that from after you say this is the file, then add two dashes or a double quote, and then write the HTML content, which I can just scrape and put it into a file, and it'll help me build a website. So that's how people were trying to build website builders or lovable kind of tools, unless this parameter of tool call existed. So this is how lovable is also built, or any other platform like rollout.site, or Replit, etc. So there are a bunch of tools defined, where in each tool there are definitions that, a code writer tool, that you have to write code. If you have to write code, this is an instruction. This is the schema. In the first schema, you will tell that what language the code is in. Is it Python, HTML, CSS, etc. Then the code itself, uh, in the next part. So a developer can parse it, create a particular file. Okay, it was written that it is an HTML file. So a developer knows the code also is going to be in HTML, but they can again add in the description. To further define in the tool description, and they can just parse that and put into an HTML file, and you will be very, very sure that that HTML file code will work, because that's what you were expecting. That was that's what you defined, right? So we kind of added a instruction in this, but many people do that. But there is a better way to do it, which is explained in the next step. Yeah, which was step 5, where we added the formatting instruction. Formatting instruction can be for anything. It can be a structured output. It can be, as we discussed, you can create sequences, etc. It can be a chain of thought tools, that you are building a website builder where you have multiple tools. One tool is a CTO, one tool is a product manager, one tool is a front end developer, one tool is a back end developer. Now the product manager's tool is that, the tool should have the description of the product, what problem we are trying to solve, why are we trying to solve this problem, then what are the user journeys. These are the schemas, which helps build a lot more context and very accurately, right? Then what are there any branding guidelines, edge cases we should be aware of? Then this data is required for the CTO tool, as in there is one CTO tool who decides a high level plan. But to call that CTO tool, there is a parameter required, which is the content provided by the product manager. Then CTO has a schema that, okay, this is the high level plan. This is the task list of tasks that the backend developer has to do. This is the list of tasks the front end developer has to do. And then there's a tool called front end developer, which writes the code and files for the front end. Then there's a tool that writes the code and file for backend. Now you can make it as complex as you want. You can have 15 tools. You can have DevOps. You can have a code reviewer, QA, someone who modifies the code, someone who creates one specific tool to create SVGs, one specific tool to go and find the best images that you can find on the internet, a tool that searches the web, analyzes an image, and tells based on the PRD and based on the project that you're creating, yes, this image is suitable for this project. That's how you are able to get very high quality and very beautiful outputs by structuring these tools in a sequence or parallelly. But to structure that, obviously you need to understand how they work, right? Then just I'll quickly take a couple of more questions that were there. Then we'll take the Q at the end of this session. Yeah. What is the current recommended AI coding tool stack to get reasonable work done? So I personally use VS Code with Cloud Code, and that is more than enough. I have not used anything else. If I have to do some research or find some API, some documentation, I either go to Google or then I go to Cloud Code in web. Cloud Anthropic Chat, Cloud Chat in web to help me find some data or some API documents, etc. And then I further use that same thing, and it can be done from the IDE itself. But I prefer to keep the context separate, because then my code limits get over. Fundamentally, it's a pretty expensive plan, but we still have limits, and it spoils the context that suddenly I'm talking about code and logic and what edge cases we have to think about, and then I'm telling it, okay, research about this particular company, how they are solving it. And so I do that on cloud, or I do it myself, and then I prompt it. I spend at least 10-15 minutes writing one prompt in one message, and which ensures, as of today, in the last 4 or 5 months, whenever I use cloud code in one shot, 90% of times, whatever new feature change, research, prototype, or a page function I'm trying to build gets one shot in with almost utmost accuracy. Uh, that's that's that and that is the only important thing. As in, like, when developers write code, they think more than writing code, right? So you have to kind of logically think that, okay, if we are doing this, what all HCCs are there, etc., etc., how to kind of solve this, what if this happens, what if the user gets stuck there, and multiple other things. But writing the prompt is very important. If you keep saying, yeah, fix this, make this look better, fix this, it is not going to work. You will get, you will say that, LLMs are useless, LLMs are not worth it, they don't give output. But that is not the case. They give very decent output. I will also not say that with the hype you see in the market, they'll give you like extreme output, but they give you very decent high business value outputs. Yeah. So coming back to the session. So in the step 5, we did the same API call, but this time the definition of how to respond or a format we gave via a tool, and we understood why uh, doing that via a tool is better. Now we will see a practical example of it, right? We'll see the same example in two methods. Now this is the example. So there is this company. I will say, I'll not say the exact name of the company. Uh, I call them Lead Code for now because everyone knows Lead Code, right? So Lead Code is where you go and do online coding sessions. Right now, Lead Code already has a platform where a lot of developers come in, do their QA sessions, etc. They help people getting hired. The business team comes to the product or product management or the tech team and tells them, okay, currently, AI, data modeling, and security of AI models, etc., prompt injection is trending in the market, right? And here is a list of skills that we should start assessing for, because there's a lot of demand in hiring and we'll probably make a lot of money. Now, these are business goals. Business people would not know that, okay, you have a code testing platform. By default, you will assume that, okay, people can come and everyone is coding only, and you can come and test your code. Logically, it is right. Obviously, someone is writing logic and you're testing that logic online in a particular environment. But what happens is, when you are testing that logic, the infrastructure to test that logic differs a lot. As in, you're doing DSA, DP, etc., the infrastructure is very different. If you're testing for model development, the data sets that are required, or the model training time, it is fundamentally very different than the infra that would be available. Now, it is the product manager's task that, okay, here is a list. This is a real list. So we'll see step 6, input data. When you also want to play around with this use case, you can use any data set. So on the call, I'll run the small data set, but the actual use case was this. And this is a real business problem, and this is from a real company. This is a real use case, a real practical example. So there are 207 list of items there, and actually there were around 600 list of items. Now, the product managers were assigned to figure out that are these skills accessible in their current platform. Now, fundamentally, how will these product managers or even anyone in their tech company kind of figure this out? If I have to do by default, I can think of two ways. I will see the, a description skill. I will not use fireflies. Yeah. So I will, go find these people who are in artificial intelligence and data science, and then ask them what is the standard, how can we test the skills. Okay, I want to test this in current setup. Yes, not for a recruitment company. This is a list of skills provided by, I will say, an online coding platform, online coding and interview platform, not a recruitment company. There is an online coding and interview platform which is already there, not a hiring company, not an HR company, a software SaaS business. Now they already have millions of users. They are very famous in the market, and they want to expand into further coding fields. There are more domains within coding, right? So business teams comes in that, okay, these are a list of things that we want to expand into. Now go and research about it. Now, to research about it, you can either find these skilled people in these domains because you want to test everything on every level. That in artificial intelligence, you want to test this mega skill, micro skill, and from a very beginner level to top level, you want to test. Now, a product manager or developer who does not know about artificial intelligence or data science, they can't judge it. They can't they don't know what the test would be like, what is the standard. So they can either go and find these experts and consult them, or they can go research on the web, spend time, figure out what are the standard practices, what are three, four, five types of standard tests, what are other companies doing in interviews, are there any other platforms who are testing for this, right? In the first case, it becomes very expensive because you need to find 300-400 expert people to help you standardize and understand is it possible on your platform. If it is not possible, what you have to do, right? Coming to the second part, if you have to do your own research also on the internet, you have to logically understand that what is the subject, why are they testing this, and why, what infra is required. In terms of infra, you have to understand that do they require an IDE, do they require a model training system with high GPUs where people would kind of train models, or there will be visual output, people will do input of images, etc., etc., right? So that research itself is time consuming. If you give it to two people, they will spend at least 6 months to find some solid data on this. Now, what the product manager here did, so he created one step that, so okay, this is the solution for this, right? And now there are two levels of solution. This is the first level of solution. The product manager defined that this is an input file where this data is available, and he created a large system prompt. Now we are coming to a larger system prompt. There are tools available in this. There are tools in this code as well. You will see how they are used. So now there is a large system prompt that you are a AI agent specialized in analyzing skills, because as in, why are they taking this approach? Because they know that since LLMs are knowledgeable, I'm saying there is a differentiation between smart and knowledgeable. You can make them smart by providing context, maybe make them feel smart or look smart, get more accuracy, but they are very knowledgeable. So to access that knowledge, you need to give those tokens words, because they're trained on a very, very vast amount of data, which is they have read every standard interview, etc., etc. And this is trained till 2025. So anything that is available on the internet till March 2025, they have the knowledge about it. You just need to prompt it with the right words to get it. So they defined a system prompt that you are an expert in, doing determining proper technical assessments. Your primary goal is to determine this, that this is a current available infra, that we have a front end where people can, it's a web-based IDE, Monaco browser, where people can just write code. It does not run any code, right? It supports 3 languages right now. And there is some basic syntax highlighting, which is basically highlighting the code structure and format, nothing very technical. Then how does the backend work for them? That whenever in the front end people submit that code, we use JDoodle API. JDoodle is some third-party API provider which executes your code. Execution of code is nothing but what I'm doing here. When I come here and run my command, that is what I'm doing. I'm executing the code. This is my local ID. It can be on the web, but if it is on the web, that server needs to have the capability of executing this code. Now, when you execute this code, there are different kinds of languages, different kind of libraries. So you need to have different kinds of setup to do it. So this is their current setup, right? And these are the current constraints that it is only JDoodle backed API, only the language JDoodle supports. The execution time can only be 10 to 15 seconds because that's how their infra is set up. It can only include standard libraries. They cannot have any databases or data sets or files that say, there is a test that, modify the CSV file. There are millions of rows. Correct the data of the CSV file and, do some data manipulation, etc. That is not possible because we don't have any file storage, file persistent support. We have only input output text. In artificial intelligence, there, if you see, there is image generation models, etc. Image input, but that is at the LLM. But at a career or a skill level, there are further analysis, graphs, plots that they create to judge the LLM model, and not go into that depth. So they define the constraints, and then they define the task. And then in the system prompt, they added 3 variables. Why they added 3 variables? Because this is not, again, that's why I'm saying these are messages and API calls. This is not a chat. Don't get confused with a chat. This is just a script which will run one time. But since there is a list of 500 skills I have to do 500 times, so I will make this script repeatable. And if I have to make the script repeatable, there is nothing that has to change. Only the name of the skills that I have to analyze, that is the only data that is variable for me, right? The discipline name, mega skill, and micro skill. These are the only things that vary. There is level also, but if I can't do level 1, I can't do level 7. Right? So I've taken that assumption. I'm not went into the level depth, but you can do level depth also if you want. It makes this tool like 10% more complex, easier to do. Yeah, I'll answer the questions in just 10 minutes. We'll end this one in 10 minutes and we'll do, as in like I've given you the feedback link in the chat. If this is valuable, we can do two, 1 to 2 more sessions to get into further details. But let's take these 2 steps and then do a QA, and then we can end it right now. Then I wanted to end at level, fundamental 4, but then we went into chat and conversations and further simulations. But this is also good enough for you to understand and, play around. So now I have my system prompt where I have variables which I can vary. Then now, with the system prompt, I have a tool defined because I have to get the analysis done, and I want to obviously get the analysis output stored in another CSV file or a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet, which has rows and columns. And I want to ensure that it does not give me just a paragraph, then I have to sort the paragraph of so much data, which I don't understand myself. So I have told it that you have a tool called return analysis event. That once the LLM has analyzed its result, which is within a single message, there is no chain of messages. It's just way of telling the LLM to enforce it that this is how you have to respond. Return an analysis result, wherein you have the discipline name, mega skill name, micro skill name, which were anyway the variables are available to it. Uh, does it require a technical assessment? First of all, yes or no, right? If it requires technical assessment, can it be done in the current setup? Yes or no, right? Then within the technical assessment itself, the details of, if it is required, what the details of it, what is the assessment name, how to kind of actually the process of that assessment, how it works, what are the infra requirements. Do I require databases, file storages? Do I require bigger PCs with graphic cards, more higher RAMs, etc., right? Then what is the reason that we can't, if it can't be assessed on our color platform? What is the reason? What is the limitation that we have, right? And if there is a limitation, what are the actual requirements? Give me a list of requirements to make this possible on the platform. Now I have told it that these are all the required things. I require this data, this data, this data. Now I've just written one script, as in it is again the same API call. There is a tool, there is a system message. With that tool and system message, now I have added 2 more variables into this code. One variable is that you have a variable within the system prompt where the micro skill discipline data can change. You can change that data because you would want to run the script at once. You don't want to press enter 50 times or 500 times. Okay, do this again, do this again. You want to run it and you just want a result after 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 1 hour, how much ever time it takes. To make that happen, there is a script that I've added that the same API call that this is the initial message. Please analyze XXX. So I have added the variable 2 places. I can add it in the user message also, as there was a discussion that if I can add it in the user prompt or the system prompt, it doesn't matter. In the user message, you can add these the skills. I've added it in the system prompt as well to be double sure that okay it responds, because it doesn't create any difference on the output. But I can't have the user message this long because because system messages have more weightage in terms of, just like tools have more weightage that they would respond in a certain structure, system messages also have the same kind of weightage to it. And in user messages, you can't define temperature, and there are a couple of other parameters. You can't do that in the user message, right? Now, yeah, we were here. So this is the script which does the same API call. So this part is preparing the system prompt with current data set. So system prompt equals to the system prompt that was there. Just format discipline to discipline, just replace the variables from my CSV file. Now start. So create. So just this is create tool, or you can just even pass the variable directly. Both things, format or syntax doesn't matter. That you create the tool that was defined because I'm creating that API call to Claude, right? So I prepared my system prompt with the data. Then I prepared my tool, as in I brought my tool into this script. Then the messages with a try that basically a loop. Now this is making the API call with the tools. Now so this is the result. So basically, because I know the response will be the tool use, which is the return analysis response, and I can process that where I'm parsing the data and inserting it. If it is not there, then I've added another sequence that okay, continue a conversation that you can talk to yourself, or if you want to talk to me, you can talk to me, right? So it can be done in 2 ways. So currently it has been configured to talk to itself with a sequence of messages as a user assistant in itself. Okay, I have done this, counter thought of argument between its knowledge, and then return the data. Then I have the final part that save results to CSV. Now, this function can be anything, right? This can be push data to CRM or push data to Twitter. This is a same push data to database. This is the same simple function that is for me right now saving is going to save the data to a CSV. So now it is going to save it in this particular folder, which is right now empty, and that is the fundamental script. So this is just the main run and main function which tells what to run first. And you don't have to learn the syntax anyway. You just have to learn the AI logic of stuff. And the syntax by default doesn't matter because even I haven't written code myself from my hand since like 5 6 years. It was last in college maybe. Since the last 3 years, I've just been prompting and reading and correcting it. That's all. Yeah. So I'll just run this tool now. So now, yeah, to just give you another thing that how this IDE works, I'm closing this terminal. I can have multiple terminals open at the same time. Right now, if you see, I'm in the fundamentals folder, but my script now is in fundamental level 2 folder. So I can just do, there's a command called cd, which helps you move forward or backward. If you do cd dot dot, you go back. Now I am in learn AI. If I now do cd fundamentals level 2, I am in this fundamentals level 2. Now I can just run the script again. F6. Right, so I'm running it with a small data set where it's the same process, but there are only 3 skills. Because if I run it right now with 500 skills, it will keep going on for, because I did the task. This actually did this task. It took around 8 to 9 hours to complete the script. But in 8 to 9 hours, and you were able to save a lot of business value. Yeah. So it is now just printing logs. Okay. And you can print any logs that you want to read. We will come to that: debugging, printing, logging, etc. And this is all available. This is, you can Google, you can learn. I'm just trying to pass the knowledge or pitfalls or logics that are important. Rest is already available on the internet, Google, ChatGPT, because that is very fundamentally simple and repeatable, and the code has been done multiple times. People have written a lot of debuggers, loggers, so GPT can write help you write whatever you want to write. So the first one is processed, and it has saved the output to this file. Now this is a CSV file here, which fundamentally it is unreadable, but what it says is what I can explain. That I'll open this in a Google Sheet. Actually, you will be able to see it more clearly. So I hide one column. So this is fundamentally the same result. I have hidden that column because of a reason. I'll tell you why. So now this is the CSV where the discipline name is there and mega skill, micro skill. It says, does it require a technical assessment? Yes, it requires a technical assessment. Can it assess it? Can our current platform assess? No. What is the actual technical assessment? It is again that whole data that we mentioned in the tool, right? The process, what is the standard, what is the infra required. So it is in that exact format. Assessment, what is the name of the assessment? What is the process brief? I'll try to zoom in here. Yeah. So what is the assessment name? What is the process brief, right? And what are the infra needs? That we need a Python environment with this. We need libraries for data manipulation, text-based output, etc., etc. All the data that is required. What is the reason that it cannot be done in a current format? So that obviously the product managers or whoever has to justify it to business that this is the actual reason. And these are the exact system requirements that we have. And this is just a timestamp. Now, how you can improve this further for more accuracy, I'll come to the second step of the same script, right? It'll be exactly the same script with just one addition. Yeah. So now I am at step 7. It is just an extension of step 6. It is literally the same thing, but right now the product managers forgot that, okay, I need to back up whatever I'm saying, right? I can't run any AI analysis and just tell it maybe what if it is hallucinating, etc. How do I back it up? So what you can do now is you can add more data sources to ensure the data is correct, right? If you are able to get factual data. So now again, here is the same system prompt, the same variables, the same, a tool return your analysis result. Then there will be one additional tool. There is a tool called web search. Now this web search tool you can build yourself. So there are two kind of tools with, if you're using OpenAI or Cloud anything, there are two kind of tools you can define. Since everyone wants to do web search, so Cloud said, okay, we will create that tool at our end. We will host it on our server. You just tell us you want to use the tool and how many times one function is allowed to search the web, and you define this tool. It is a server level tool. That's why there is no further parameters, etc. It is a predefined tool with a predefined structure, and all this data will be available in the document that I share you guys later after this call. But it is a predefined client-side tool, and there are only few, like 2-3 client-side tools that you need to know about. There is one web search, web fetch. There is one, PDF reader, image, so that models understand image, right? So then the models by default the same. In the same API call, you can add this parameter now, so it has become multimodal. That's what you call multimodal. That the same model is capable to perform analysis or interact, respond with different kinds of data. So here it is actually able to search the web, and after searching the web, it gives you descriptions, briefs, and the citations in itself. Right? The AI can pass a query, what it wants to search. The query will return a result. The AI can use its own analysis, the additional data from the web plus the citations. Right? Now, when I run this thing, I've added just one more thing in this, that in my CSV file, add one more column of citations and just pass me a list of citations in the link. If you see in the tool as well, right, there is another part which is in the schema. There is one more part which is citations. In step 6, if you would see, this is missing. There is no citations. Now this ensures that you can also validate it yourself and it becomes more accurate. Similarly, if you're running these tasks, maybe you have more further data analysis tasks. You can connect your database, you can connect your CRMs, whatever business problem you're trying to solve, whatever data that is available. If you're able to fetch it, if you're able to find it, you can get that data and use them in these tools and use them in this analysis in a very structured way. So now when I run this, it will take a little more time than the earlier one. Right? But once the analysis is done here, it will give out the same file, but with one more column. But the data and content and the quality of content would be very fresh and very relative. And you will have backed citations because the LLM actually cited data from those links and you can verify. And then again, you want more accuracy. Okay, that there is a particular library where a list of interviews and standard is present. There is an organization who standardizes it. So in the web search tool, you can add a parameter that only this website is allowed for you to for research. I don't want you to research 10 different websites. Maybe you find a stupid website which has some trash data which is not relevant, right? So you can control those parameters, but step by step. So as I said, it is again just one API call. With that one API call, you can do so many things. It can just, it can be a message, then it can be a simple HTML response or a simple text completion. It can be one simple blog. Then it can be a structured JSON output, which you can use for whatever data enrichment you want to use. Then it can, turn into a fundamental data analysis, right? Which is happening right now. So this process is running just in case, but I'll share you my screen and the sheet, what data that was there. Right, so this is the reason I hit that column citations, because I already uploaded that output CSV which comes there. So it makes things quicker, right? So now it has all the list of links that this data has been read and verified from these links. Now what a product manager here can do is, say you have a list of 600-700 or 1,000 data points analyzed. You can randomly go a sample check of 15-20 that okay, the citations and the data match. So it gives you more confidence of accuracy, and you can by default prove to your businesses and prove to yourself, okay, this is working, right? So that's how you can modify one simple API. Now we have just, in 7 steps, we have modified one simple API from just one message, from a message to a prompt with instruction, then a prompt with instruction with a tool for a structured output, then with a structured output tool into a script which can run multiple times and analyze data. So you can do that many places where you are sure the LLM by default would be knowledgeable. Say I want to get a list of 50 Hindi movies, as in I can just ask the LLM to give me a list of 50 Hindi movies with the actor names, actress names, and a possible date of release. I don't have to search the web, because if I'm doing this for 1990 to 2024, the LLM knows about it. The knowledge is accessible. You just have to prompt it and you have to force it to return it to you and keep running, because that is required. It will force it to give you the data. And if the temperature is low, it will not hallucinate unless it is a very niche market, or maybe it is some country with 10,000 people and they have their own film industry which the LLM is not trained upon. Then it'll start hallucinating. But the data, if you is publicly available at multiple places, you don't have to worry about it. You can run this verification 10 times and it'll work for you. So the last step, we build it into a script which can execute multiple times for you to analyze data of any kind. So this is just one business use case example. There can be 100 other examples how what you can do with this same script. It can solve this itself can solve 50% of basic business problems and automation tasks and analysis tasks and data heavy tasks. Then the next step is that we added further accuracy to it by including a third party tool. First time we have added a third party tool which is external. Right now, the LLM was talking to itself, analyzing data and giving its own output. Now the LLM is also talking to the internet, right? If the LLM is talking to the internet, it can give you better data, right? So that's I guess we will. It's 1:20 now. We'll try to end the session here. And I was preparing that. Okay, I have to teach a lot of pass through a lot of things, but sadly we'll end it at fundamental levels 2 only. I over expected the speed I could share information at. And I guess a lot of people got bored as well. But anyway, whoever is learning, good for them. Yeah, so fundamentals level 3. Then the next parts are chat. Then within that chat is basically a sequence of things, and within that chat, assigning tools that the chat can talk to multiple things. So that becomes an agent that you build a sequence of thought, a sequence of events, and this, as in I'm calling it chat, or I would chat is not it does not need to be a chatbot. Chat is a sequence of messages because you're simulating a conversation to get an output. If you do that same thing on the web, it becomes a chatbot where you chat. So this API itself is called messages in chat. So it sounds a little confusing, but to make it more, developer friendly, it's basically simulation or sequence. They call it messages in chat. So you also have more logic, assistant user. So you can do a question answer thing, back and forth thing, and it becomes very useful for you. Then the next part would have been Shopify, and then we would have converted that chat agent into an actual chatbot, which would be, which is right now also live on a demo Shopify store, which would help you find products on the Shopify store, help you cancel orders. It would send you an OTP. I'll just give you a quick example, but if possible next time, or if we do this next time, we can do in more depth. But let's go to fundamental level 4. I'll just give you a start. And so I did, again, for people who are not used to ID, I am doing these, as in there's someone asking questions why I am typing commands. I can just, I can just ask Cloud Code to do it for me, but that takes a lot more time unnecessary for these very little things. I will ask Cloud Code to write the code for me. I don't want it to run git add or run, Python -m and project. This helps you also fundamentally understand what is happening when things are running, why things are running, and you spend 10 more minutes on your code base and thinking. So it makes your workflow better. If you automate everything, it becomes useless. And so I just went back CD, then I went to fundamental levels 4, because the Shopify support agent is in this folder. And that's what I want to run. Right. So now this time it is not a script. Right. So this time I'm running a local server, because it has become an app where people can interact with it. Right now, everything was working in my terminal. It was a script. Now I want to host it somewhere with a web front, or even only a backend, where maybe my front end team or some front end person can use my API, who is not, locally connected to my system. Right. So I build a server and I host stuff there. Now a server, there can be multiple servers. You can have a backend on a different server, front end on a different server. but it is fundamentally the same thing. It is a computer on the web, and right now this server is a computer or a server in my browser. Right, so my local computer is itself running a server. I can deploy this, then this becomes a server on the cloud. It is the same thing. A few small logics would change, nothing else. So I'll just share my screen and give you a live example of how things evolve into extremes. With one API, how it evolves into multiple things. You're able to see my screen, right? It's which says GrowthX, uh, merge store assistant. And so this is actually a Shopify store. I'll just get the link. Yeah, so this is like a live store with actual payment gateways. You can place orders, everything here. And this is, suppose I have a chatbot. I want to build a chatbot or a support bot. I will configure the backend at least myself. Now, if you see this front end, you can use this same logic to build your chatbot into Intercom, Freshdesk, Chatwood, all the available chat pairs. Because why would you want to build this UI? You want to build the backend logic of how your bot functions, right? So I'll just say hi right now, and it respond me what it can do for me. Now, logically, it can do multiple things for me. It can ask me for, it can help me browse products, which is public data. So I just jump to a little more complex thing. Okay, I want to get the status for my order. Now, logically, getting the status for your order should by default be behind authentication. Now, since these stores are public, if unless I was logging into the store, it wouldn't be a problem. It is authenticated. Now it is public. So now how I get authentication done? So this is a very fundamental level of authentication. You can have a token based, login based, multiple thing, but here I'm just doing a email based authentication. That okay, this is my email. Now you'll see that if the AI would get to know the OTP, if you can inject the prompt, no, that is logically fundamentally not possible, because that's how I have structured the tools. That's how people structure authentication, right? So now it has said, great, I have sent a 6-digit OTP to your domain, as in my website. Right. So if I check this, 0 minutes ago, it has actually sent me. It has used a third party. It has used multiple tools to do this, right? It has not randomly just sent me this OTP, analyze my email, then it generated an OTP, and then it sent me. And now it will validate the OTP that I'm giving it. Right? I can write, this is my OTP, Are bhai, era mera OTP. I can, but AI can analyze that OTP in multiple ways, right? Excellent. Now you have authenticated yourself successfully. Now I can give my order ID to, take any kind of action on my order, cancel it, update it, get the status, ask ticket, add a ticket to it, multiple things, whatever you can imagine can be done. Now this is again happening from that one same script with just a different configuration of tools, where the tools are now more third-party tools instead of internal tools, instead of analysis. That's how you can. This is how you can build a chatbot. It can have, now I can have. It already has product search, then a lot of other things to be taught, but you get a hint of it. So now, for example, I was saving the OTP data in a local database in my CSV file, right? And it had tools available that the AI can generate an OTP and AI can validate an OTP. But I will do the generation and I will do the validation from my Python code. So AI just is telling me as the developer in the code that I want to use the OTP generate OTP tool, which requires the email, for example, generate OTP. So it'll tell me generate OTP for this email. So I will generate that OTP for that email. And that's how fundamentally authentication works. At a higher level, there are encryptions, tokens, multiple other things. But at a very layman level, in the CSV for this email, this OTP was generated. When it was generated, it would have been marked as validated false. Now it has the second tool to validate OTP, where it is asking the user, okay, to validate the OTP, it requires the 6-digit OTP code. Now it can't access the 6-digit OTP code. So it is logically asking me, okay, give me the 6-digit OTP code to validate it, right? Similarly, to send me that email, right? So when the OTP is generated, the execution of that tool is written in such a way the OTP will be generated because I am writing the execution tool. I know the tool was used. So I generate the OTP to what email it was. Then I have written one function. There is one recent API which can send emails from your domain. So I add that data. Okay, this is the template. This is the OTP code that was generated, and this was the email. So I received the email. Now this OTP can be sent over WhatsApp, etc., multiple other things, right? And so yeah, so we can do a lot, but so that's it for today. I will share the documents and a lot of other things which you can check out. And if there are any QA questions, let's take that. And whoever wants to, kind of leave and they're busy, they can obviously go. And please, if you have time, do leave feedback. Yeah, so I'll just go through the QA. Whoever has QA, as in, is Sarthak here? Sarthak Kapil? Yeah, he's there. Yeah, but you won't have OCD. OCD, always knowing that the LLM is relatively more knowledgeable than you. If he would have been far better, if it searched specific socials, open source parts of the web, return results, like in that skill assessment example, had it tried to reverse engineer what other platforms are. You can add that analysis, right? Now you have a tool structure. You can add another tool that we need one more parameter, competitor analysis, how the competitor is doing it step by step. So that again, it's up to your limitation. So for this example in teaching, I've kept it simple. I don't want to complicate in these early examples. There are 10 other examples I will add in the documents and the data I have, which are more complex. And you can make it as complex as you want. It's just upon you how complex you want to make it, and is there any purpose being also fulfilled if you make them complex. Are there going to be more sessions? Let's see. Let's see based on the feedback forms and the response. I will send the recording sessions and the documents that I have till now, and that was already planned. And then let's see if we'll have more sessions. If we have 20, 30, 40, at least 30, 40 people, we'll do another session. As in, I wouldn't want to do a session for 5, 6, 10 people. At least 25 to 35 people, if we can do a session. Second, the next part of the session. So yeah, someone asking, this similar tool structure was used in building simplification AI. Yeah, correct. So while building simplification AI, so there were at least similarly 15, 20 tools to get images, tools to get data, generate SVGs, plan PRDs, write code, write CSS code, validate the code, deploy the code, different kind of tools so that it could work in a sequence and get the whole job done. So the question is fine. Creating the entire CSV manually would have been a pain. How did that company further use this to achieve their goal? So yeah, so the company saw the results. They sampled across 20 data points, and they were satisfied. Okay, this data is correct, and then they trusted this data unless proven otherwise. What's your message about it? Please fix this. Don't do this again, etc. Trap. Yeah, Sarthak has a question. So yeah, so why I am using the IDE itself? I'll tell you again. If you turn off my internet, I can't even create a HTML landing page without the internet. But I have built this habit that I can debug code, I can read through the code. That's why I also prefer Python. You can add just print statements at whatever step you want to add the print statement and add those debugging codes. It helps you kind of build a logic, and then you can see what is going wrong, what is going right. But that will only happen once you start yourself playing with it. Otherwise, it is very impossible for you to understand. One, this is a very basic level. You can do browser debugging. You can go into the network tab, look at people's APIs. Someone is not providing a public API, and I want to use their platform for AI automation. I can log into their platform and see in the network tab what API is bringing what data. I can try to use that API with my authentication token, even if there is no public API. There are unlimited things possible if you are, curious and doing it yourself. What are the top discuss? What the tools you are discussing are basically API calls to LLM with different system prompts. Is this correct, or I'm missing anything? Yes, the tools what I'm discussing are, yeah. So the tools or system prompt, everything is just a data that is an API call to the LLM. Then the LLM responds in a certain way. Based on the response, it depends that do we have to do any third party API call. In this case, we had to send OTP, right? First generate OTP. So at generate OTP, we were generating OTP locally, but we also have to send that OTP to the user. So I am also on behalf of the LLM, because the LLM can't talk to uh, the LLM directly can't talk to the recent API, right? There are MCP servers to do that. That is another topic. We'll not go into that. You know, you'll get more confused. But yeah, so to say I want to send the OTP on WhatsApp. Now LLM told me that the user has to be authenticated. It tells my system. In my system, I have to then generate the OTP. Then I have to also ensure the user gets the OTP. So I have to write the integration to send that OTP to that user. I already have the user data. I already have the OTP. The LLM just asked me to do it. The LLM did not generate the OTP. The LLM did not send it. The LLM just communicates. It does not actually interact with anything. It always responds with a string or a JSON or a structure, which you have to use and manipulate and do further things. Can we extend? We can't extend the session today to cover 100%. Sorry, dude. What kind of logging best practices tools do you use? What kind of logging best practices tools do I use or recommend? See, my personal preference again, I would say, is Python. Python with any IDE, because it is very beginner friendly. I don't want to get into a debate. If there are developers, Node.js is better or Rust is better, or it would be better. I don't mind. It is, for me as a beginner, it is easy to read. It helps me debug faster, and there is no, as in for right now, there is no efficiency problem, or I'm not at 100 million scale of users where 200 milliseconds of performance, which might be better in Node.js, is impacting anything. All the languages can almost do all the same things. They have their own, pros and cons, and I prefer Python. Anyone can prefer anything. Yeah, in terms of logging best practices, to start with, you can just add print statements. If you want to do more detailed logging, I can show you around as in I have a micro SaaS platform live, which is again a lead scoring system and a content generation system with automations. It has, it is deployed on a bare metal server. It has at least 15 tools, 15, 16 tools, searching Reddit, searching the web, searching keywords, searching subreddits, searching brand data, searching about a user's persona, then compiling that data, then analyzing posts and judging those posts on multiple parameters of sentiment, urgency, authority of the user. Is it a spam post? Is it an actual requirement? And then giving you signals plus possible responses, that too based on facts and a lot of other contextual data, so that you can use it to market more efficiently. So there I have a server level logging, because I have actual paying users who are using that platform. If they get any bug, I will never know, because here I will know, because I am only running it. There is no problem even if I have to write the code again, delete the code again, etc. But if there are other users using it on a server, then I have to have some logs which I can monitor to be sure, right? So that is a next logical step. But to start with, print statements are more than enough. Don't get into any decision paralysis. Just get started, and if you want to get started, just get started. There is no other way. How do you prevent APIs from answering things? This is already answered. Cool. I guess all the QA ones are answered. I'll just see the comments just in case. Thank you, Piyush. You can please do leave feedback on that link. I had commented, as in I had pinned the comment. Yeah, I just texted it again. If anyone gets like 5 minutes of time, please do leave feedback. Then depending on this, we will be able to coordinate and do a next session, and maybe if we have to do it and maybe improve it, right? I'll just read through the comments one last time. Are there any other things? Is there any recording? The session is recorded. Everyone, I don't know how everyone will receive it, but at least GrowthX members will receive it. If you leave me a Slack message or Slack, Twitter or LinkedIn message or a feedback in that feedback link, I'll try and get you the recording as well. Can you push this file? Yeah, obviously, I will push this files to a repo. That is the plan. That's why I created this. And why I created this repo itself was that additionally, I'll give you all the resources from where I learned. The resources I have learned from are basically literally free documentation from Claude and Anthropic, no one else. But then you'll get a little confused because they start with IP and Jupyter notebooks basically, right? Then Jupyter notebooks are Python only, but then people get confused. So I don't want to add to that confusion. That itself is a problem for people to start. Okay, this is Python, but in 2 different formats. So just a simple Python script, one API that people have to learn to get started. And if they get started, then they'll automatically succeed further, because it's very nice to learn this. I see that function summaries sum and number result webs content feeds them back to summaries with citations. Yeah, correct, Sarthak. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So the web search result feeds back the data to the chat, as into the assistant, as into the main API call with the all the analysis that has already been done. So a message gets appended. Then the main chat returns a message where it says using this tool to return the analysis, because citation links were not present in the main context or chat, and citation links can only be logically brought through a web search, and web search provided those citation links. And since the tool had a requirement of citation links to be present, that's why after the citation link came, then the analysis got completed, and it fed the data into the CSV files, or wherever you want to feed it, to a CRM, send it to your Slack, send it on WhatsApp, etc. All of that is very easy, very solvable once you learn this one API, because those are very simple integrations. And once you learn this one API, it unlocks you to learn any kind of integration, because everything is same. And in the end, you don't have to write the code. Just for this, I would say practice and learn, except you can just prompt and write, because this will help you prompt better. Does Cloud charge separately for websites? Yeah, Cloud charges separately for websites, a little extra cost. I had earlier built my own websites, but there are other services, because it in itself is a big problem. So there are services that you can use, Tably, already inbuilt Cloud. There is Google search, but then that is not AI search with sentiment analysis, etc. It'll just give you links and raw data you have to analyze yourself. There is XR.ai. It's a large AI-based web search company. Their whole product is an API. They have one API which you can use to search the web by giving a prompt. So their AI will run the web search analysis and return you the result like the Cloud's web search tool does, right? A result of summaries, data, whatever you want, images, etc. Sarthak, yeah, we can make this run faster. I can, as in like, if the data in the case, if the data is not dependent on each other, they can run parallelly. So I had not added that parallel, threading, multi-threading here, because it makes people confused that what is happening, multi-threading, etc. I just, to explain it, okay, one by one, it is going through each row and doing it based upon available rate limits, because then I have to explain 10 other concepts. If there is a rate limit, you can just do 400 API calls to Cloud in 1 minute. You can't do more than that. So now you have 1,000 CSV where you have to do a parallel call. So you can't do that. You have to build a script to manage that rate limit. You okay, do 200 now, 200 then. So that complication is not required as of now for anyone, because the point of this session itself was a very layman level, a very fundamental level learning on how to actually get started in building these platforms. When the model continues shorter direct your format is this is basically list of skills. Cool. Yeah. So those were all the questions. If there is anything else, please leave it back on the feedback form. Reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever. Follow the GrowthX team. If there is going to be another event and you want to be notified, just follow the GrowthX channel or somewhere where you'll get these notifications of the session number 2 happening of this. And because since there were no meeting invites sent, I don't have a list of emails, and it's an effort to kind of compile that list of emails and send invites. But we'll try to, if there is an exception, we'll try to do it in a more structured manner, right? Thank you, guys. If there are any other questions, please ask now, or just send it over Slack, LinkedIn, Twitter, make a tweet, post it, whatever you want. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.